I'm Chucky, and I'm your friend to the end. I hate kids.
Where are we going?
Home.
Where's home?
I have no idea.
Heidi fucking ho. Ah, ah, ah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Chucky Talks. This is episode 3, part 2, discussing episode 3 of the TV series, I Like to Be Hugged. Hi, Christine.
Hello, Alex. How are you?
I'm great. Good.
I am well.
I am well as well. Episode 3, I Like to Be Hugged. I do like to be hugged. Do you?
Yeah, I like a good hugger too.
Yeah.
There was a really moving bit of news footage the other day. Ali Velshi from MSNBC is in Ukraine or Poland or something. And some woman was telling him her story of escaping. And at the end of it, she was getting emotional. She goes, "Can I give you a hug?" And he hugged her and made me cry. And I just posted the other day, his 2 little babies, like a little baby is crying, like a 2-year-old's crying. And another baby walks up and goes, "You okay?" And the baby goes, "Yeah. Need hug?" And the kid hugged. Oh, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So sweet.
Yeah, I like hugs. I like giving and receiving hugs, and you know, I think they're very helpful, honestly. And COVID really depleted our hugs.
Yeah, it's true. We had a dearth of hugging.
Yeah.
Just don't hug me when I'm about to cry, because then I will always, that makes me cry. So whenever when they
Makes
see me,
you cry. Yeah.
yeah, like if I'm on the verge of tears for something, and someone goes, "Oh, let me give you a hug," it's like, don't fucking hug me, I'll lose it. But
Well, that's one of the benefits of a hug, or one of the strengths of a hug is it's a good place to cry.
yeah, I don't like to be so fucking self-indulgent.
Yeah, neither do I, but there's a time and place.
Yeah, I know. And the time and the place isn't Atlantic City at a convention. Like I was walking around crying like a fucking tool.
Crying, yeah.
And Tony Moran was like, kissed my face like 5,000 times. Like told me how beautiful I was, and everybody was hugging me. I was really a spectacle.
And we're going to be back there. We're going to be back there this weekend. So this will air on Tuesday, and we will be there on Friday for New Jersey Horror Con.
Are you going to be there? Are you going in early or no?
Thursday night, yeah, I'll be there.
All right, cool.
Yeah. Yep, I'm flying directly into AC.
Yeah, I asked for that, but it's only one airline and it's a red eye and it's 3 stops and yeah.
Not many flight. Yeah, it was difficult for me too. It was one Spirit flight late at night. It's the only one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a fun convention, that's for sure. It's the same guys who did PA Horror Con. They're really good guys. Ryan's a good dude, and we had a lot of fun out in Pennsylvania. We're gonna have a lot of fun back in Atlantic City.
We are indeed, and the weather will be nicer, and the boardwalk will be more fun to be on, and
Yeah, I love that beach, especially at night. It's just beautiful.
it is.
So, okay, we are here to discuss episode 3. You agree with me, I know, but this is one of my favorite episodes of the season.
Yep.
It was my first favorite episode, maybe is a fair way to say it. Like I love the pilot. I loved episode 2, but 3, it's dark, it's heavy, there's a tone shift, there's great music, there's great acting, there's great writing. It's really just such a spectacular episode.
It is. I agree.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite things about the episode, though, which I didn't remember happening when I watched it originally, was previously on fucking Chucky. And I think that they even might have, it's called a Frankenbite, where they make a sentence that doesn't actually exist, where Brad never said previously on fucking Chucky, but they have him saying fucking and have him saying Chucky, and they Frankenbite it together.
Oh, you think so?
I think so. It sounds a little Frankenbitten, yeah. But I could be wrong, but it's
That's
really.
I never heard that expression, and I do ADR editing as an audio engineer, but I never heard that expression. Yeah.
Frankenbite, yeah, it's specifically to reality television when they want you to create a sentence out of that doesn't exist,
Oh,
which you do a lot.
yeah.
And then you have the like, say, they want me to say, I never liked Alex. He's a fucking douche. And they have me saying all those little pieces, but never about you, or like not, you know, in that. And then they'll find the way so tonally it works, or maybe paraphrase it a little bit, get that sentence said, and then just have the camera be behind the person so you can't see that they're not actually saying that, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
all right.
that's-
So I was very pleased with how hard Brad hit the word fucking in this. It proves in fucking Chucky. It really spits it out. It's very pleasing to me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This was, I guess the second one maybe deviated from the first, but this is an indication that those are going to be different each episode. A lot of people got them.
Oh, okay.
Several people got them. And there's a previously on fucking Chucky from Brad. There's also one in the good guy voice coming up later too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Previously on fucking Chucky. So, okay. So this opens up, this episode 3, I Like to Be Hugged, opens up in Jake's room. This is the aftermath of the Halloween party. Jake is still reeling from the humiliation, from the trauma of Lexi's self-indulgence and self-absorption to make herself popular at anyone's expense. And yeah, he's still ruminating, angered by what she did. And Chucky's there egging him on right from the start.
Yes, Chucky's in the room provoking him. We still don't know why he's so determined to get him to kill somebody.
No.
But he's really working it.
Jake's sitting there holding a knife and considering, you know, what I'm gonna really hurt this girl. I'm gonna kill her for what she did. And Chucky's, you know, encouraging him every step. And Jake starts asking him about how did you become this way? How did you become a killer? Which gives Chucky an opportunity to talk about some things that Chucky fans have probably wanted to hear for a long time. What made him a killer? And this episode addresses that. I remember reading it in the script and getting very, very excited over this episode. And you know, there have been some flashbacks already, but this is really going into an explanation for how Chucky became the way he is.
Yeah. Before we do that, though, Chucky's got a whole series of awesome one-liners. Like, you know, you're more of a stabber or a strangler. Like, I see the appeal of both. And saying it's really hard to strangle people with his little doll hands. You can't strangle them with his little doll hands. So he's got a lot of funny moments here.
Well, he was the Lakeshore Strangler, so he probably is disappointed that moniker is not going to work for him anymore because he hasn't strangled anyone in a long time.
Yeah.
So
we go back to this old
strangulation.
Yeah, right. So we're back in this like in vintage 60s sort of, you know, washed out color flashback of him at his birthday party.
Yep, 1965. This is Charles Lee Ray at, I don't know, what would you say, 7 years old, maybe?
6, 7, yeah.
About Andy's age, actually, from the first film, like right around
Maybe 7. Yeah, he looks a little older than that, maybe.
Yeah, maybe
8, but yeah.
8 or 9.
And he's whacking away at a piñata like a serial killer.
Yeah, he is. He's cutting his birthday cake and smiling sinister, a sinister smile to go along with his birthday wish. You know, that first cut, you're making a wish. You could tell.
And a great reflection in the knife again too. People's faces in a blade is, you know, a signature of this show.
Yeah, definitely.
It's great.
Definitely. And they do some cool things too. Like it splits into a triple screen, it's a split screen in threes, which is a cool thing. Not utilized all that often in television.
Mhm.
And yeah, I thought it came out really good. Yeah, this is kind of the beginning of us considering exactly how Charles Lee Ray became what he is. I mean, is this a case of nature or nurture? His family seems to be happy around him.
Mhm.
Doesn't seem like there's any. I mean, we learn later in the episode a traumatic thing that happens, but it doesn't seem to happen in spite of him. It seems to happen with his help, but we'll get to that. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's his home life doesn't seem to be all that traumatic, but there's
No.
something inside of him that's evil.
Yes, and that I think is being very clearly broadcast is that he's been kooky since the get-go.
Yeah.
So we cut from there to the logo, and the logo this week is a bunch of garden tools, not little hoes and shovels and scythes and sickles and that kind of thing coming together into the logo. So
Yeah,
it promises to be a very cutting episode, if you will, of Chucky.
it definitely is. Yeah, it's a bunch of kill tools, which will be doesn't take long to see the reference in this episode for that.
Yeah.
But first, we go to Perry Middle School, back into Miss Fairchild's classroom, and Detective Evans is there with some questions about Jake. Jake seems to have a front row seat to the happenings in Hackensack, two freak accidents, if you will. And he was there for it, and Detective Evans has questions.
And Miss Fairchild is not having it.
No.
She's being an advocate for Jake and refusing to give the detective anything. Really kind of almost rudely, like,
Yeah.
confrontationally, no, you're not getting anything from me.
Yeah, she fiercely defends him.
Yeah.
She's not having it. She doesn't matter that two people are dead. She doesn't see anything evil in Jake, I assume. So
Yeah.
the thought that he had anything to do with it is not something she's even willing to consider.
And the detective, easy for me to say, and Detective Evans isn't even really implying that he did it, but just he must know something.
Yeah.
Just it's too much of a. There's no such thing as a coincidence when it comes to crime. It's sort of a cliche, and I think that's what she's going from.
Yeah, I agree. But that's what she's talking about. Everywhere Jake goes, death seems to follow. So she doesn't really get maybe what she wanted from Miss Fairchild. She certainly doesn't get any helpful information. And this cuts to Jevin at the lockers.
Yeah.
Regular.
Jake slams that locker, and you got a kind of a jump scare, and there's Devin.
Yeah. The locker seems to be like Saved by the Bell. It's a focal point of the beginning of narration for the story. Like things happen at the lockers. That's
Mm-hmm.
You remember that show? You Can't Do That on Television.
Yeah.
MTV, where they used to sneak into the lockers and come out of the lockers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I haven't thought about that in years. But anyways, Jake is super nervous around Devin. Super nervous. He's got this smile that he can't keep off his face, and he's fidgety and he's uncomfortable.
I think Zach's got a lot of challenging performance to give in this show. In this episode in particular, he's got a lot to do and a lot of emotional work. But his ability to radiate his crush on Devin is unparalleled. It's like you can see hearts popping over his head.
Absolutely.
And Devin despite not being nervous, has a very grounded version of the same thing, though. I'm so proud of those boys. They did such a great job making the Jevin feel truly organic and so appealing. It's so cute.
Absolutely. And And yeah, and this is kind of like their first contact, you know. Devin puts his hands on Jake's shoulder, and I think Jake even looks down and looks at his hand on his shoulder. You know, this is like kind of the first time that Devin's touched him at all.
Yeah.
And what he says there, you know, you talk about them being sweet. What he says there is as sweet as it gets. You know, I want to, I don't know, protect you or something. I mean, that's
Outrageously cute. I wish an adult man would say that to me sometime. Like really incredibly emotionally, the emotional intelligence of Devin is off the chart
it is.
and so cute.
Yeah.
And also nice contrast between the Junior and Lexi. I'll catch you if you fall. You know, will you catch me? Sort of that sort of children protecting each other motif, really, which is another thing from Child's Play 2, where it's one kid was protecting another kid, you know, trying to keep the other kid safe.
Yeah. So Jake is, it looks like there's some urgency in him. He's headed somewhere. He's got something going on. Miss Fairchild stops him to suggest a kind of sit down with his parents, with Lexi's parents. She knows what happened at the party. You know, she's not all that fond of Lexi as it is. Lexi's already been giving her shit. She's the student in the class who thinks she's too cool for school, clearly, and certainly it's too cool to connect with her teacher. So yeah, you know, if Miss Fairchild leans in one direction, she seems to be very fond of Jake and not fond at all of Lexi. So she's outraged by what she learned happened, as she should be. It was insane what she did.
Yeah.
It was way over the top. So yeah, so she wants to make sure that everyone, the parents, are all brought in on what happened there.
Yeah, as they should be.
And as Jake is talking to her, his phone's blowing up. And I thought, even rewatching it, I didn't really remember. I thought it was text messages. I was like, who's texting him? Chucky? Like, is he getting all these text messages?
Yeah.
But he's not. We find out that he's tracking Lexi through her cell phone. Not sure how he worked that out, how he figured out, you know, a way to track her cell phone, but that's what he's doing. But yeah, she left her phone when Chucky scared the shit out of her in Miss Fairchild's room. So Chucky must have done it. Chucky must have taken the phone and planted some sort of you know, app on it or something that will.
Yeah, those are really common too. Those apps are not hard to come by. So I'm going with Chucky did it.
Yeah. That's usually the case, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so this is a really cool thing. You know, this episode introduces a lot of new techniques of telling the Chucky story, things that haven't been done before. And one of these here is Chucky narrating over the scenes that are happening.
Right.
Jake is stalking Lexi, who is out on a run, and Chucky's narrating it. Chucky says, you know, you got to pick your prey. You got to, sometimes the time isn't right. The moment isn't always right, but the right moment always comes.
Right.
Which kind of comes into play later also. And Jake's has a knife. He's got a butcher knife in his hand, stalking through the woods, tracking Lexi down.
Running with a knife, like so much worse than even running with scissors. He's running with this giant butcher knife. Yeah.
Yeah, running with a butcher knife. And so we think that he's about to ambush Lexi, and he tries to, and lo and behold, it's not Lexi at all, it's Junior.
All right, so yeah, so he goes and he charges her.
Yeah, he charges her, and then Junior turns around, and they're wearing similar things. You know, they have the same kind of outfit on. But he turns around and you know, more great acting from Teo, the look on his face, like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Following me?
Fucking freak.
And also, you know, Junior was very, very close to seeing that knife. If he saw the knife, you know,
yeah,
everything would have been different. But Jake just barely hides it. But it freaks Junior out. It definitely does.
Of course.
For sure. And so he comes back to the Cross residence, Lexi's house. She's sitting on the lawn. And yeah, he's freaked out about Jake. And he's pissed off at her. In our breakdown, I think we failed to mention how Junior was not happy about what she did at all. He was mortified.
Yeah.
He was. And he's still pissed about it. And he brings it up. He says, you got to apologize. That was just way too much. And,
She's like, don't fucking hold your breath.
Yeah, exactly. Hold your breath for my apology, she says. And he says, no, you don't apologize to me. You got to apologize to Jake. And she's like, never. That's never going to happen.
Yeah.
But Junior is worried that Jake could be unhinged here. He knows what Jake has been through. And, they are family. So he does know Jake very well. And yeah, he's concerned. He's concerned about what Jake might do, especially after his little run in the woods with them.
Yeah, and just she really does. It's his uncle too. He must have had feelings for his uncle, even though his uncle was, a bit of a drunk. He doesn't have affection for his uncle, and for his dad, who lost a brother a terrible way. It's just what she did was so crazy bad.
Yeah,
she's so defiant. She's so defiant, refusing to give the apology. She's so funny. She's a ballsy little chick.
She's so funny. She cracks me up. So inside the mayor's house now, the Cross residence, Caroline is having a bit of an episode. She's throwing a fit.
Yep.
Mayor Michelle says, why does she always do this when we're about to leave? So this is a common thing. She kind of breaks down and throws a fit. And the family has to deal with it. And this particular fit is over Chucky. She wants Chucky.
Yeah. Her blankie that she usually wants, or her sunglasses, neither of them will do at this point. And it's Chucky she wants.
It is.
And this is this is a really intense thing. It's interesting that Don included a child like this. These kids like this are so much more common than they were when I was growing up. Like kids who have these sort of issues, and it's a complicated thing. I liked the distress on everyone's face. Everyone is so panicked, and this little girl just runs the house through terrorizing them.
Yeah. I think for the most part, Caroline is very loved by her family. Lexi doesn't even like to admit it really, but her sister's very important to her.
Yeah.
And the parents obviously give her all of their attention and love because they leave none of it for Lexi at this point. Maybe when Lexi was younger, but certainly not in her teenage years.
Again, having been a 13-year-old girl, I can tell you they're fucking brutal, man. Most parents are not big fans of their 13-year-old daughter because they're just such little, know-it-all little bitches, I certainly was.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. And these kids reject any effort at being nice to them anyway. So, it's wasted energy.
Yeah. And so now we're back at the Wheeler house, two really beautiful houses, by the way, affluent, expensive, upper class houses. The mayor's house is the mayor's house, it even has one of those founded in 1866 or something signs. But the Wheeler house is almost just as impressive. And he's in the garage practicing with a bunch of kill tools, but also lawn equipment.
Yes.
Shows how much killing apparatuses we have lying around the house, especially for the garden. So he's holding a sickle where he kind of looks like the Reaper in that moment. Which is a point that will be reinforced later in this episode. And he's holding cutting shears, which is, directly invokes memories of the Child's Play 2, Jack in the Box, Chucky.
Sorry, Jack.
Sorry, Jack. Chucky's back. Yeah. And so he gives those a couple, whatever you call it, snips in the
Yeah.
He's practicing with all these tools. Yeah, he picks up another like curved lawn shear kind of knife, and he's whipping that around and figuring out the best way to hold it, the best way to use it, because he can't stop thinking about killing Lexi at this point.
Yeah.
So what better time than for Lexi to show up?
Yes. And she's there on some mission. We know that she's there to get the doll. We don't know how she's going to work that, but she has her back to him for a chunk of time, and he's got that big sickle thing, and he's like, he looks deranged. He's about to hack her head off. This is a great moment for me. I love when she turns around and she's like, "You look even weirder than normal."
Yeah.
It's so like that. Like it's you look even weirder than normal. Crack me up. I literally LOL'd.
Yeah. And in addition to the kill tools that we see him practicing with, there's several other useful kill tools all over the walls, like hung up. There's like axes, hatchets, and
they're displayed like art too. They're up there like separated by space, like it's a gallery of murder tools.
it is. It's a gallery of murder tools and a Maserati Gran Turismo.
Yeah.
So Lexi, she comes in, hey, freak show, and she's confrontational, but she begrudgingly apologizes.
Yeah.
And Jake, the way I saw it was kind of like, he's been obsessing over killing her for what she did. But the apology, even though, he realizes soon after how insincere it was, but at the first minute of her saying it, I sensed a little, oh, you're sorry, really? That could save me from doing something really terrible that I didn't really want to do.
Right.
But it doesn't last long, because we realize quickly, and so does Jake, that this is just a power play to get what she wants.
Yeah.
She wants Chucky for Caroline.
Yes. And it's like, now that I've apologized, now you have to reward me for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. This thing I didn't want to fucking do. And now I want your doll because I did it.
Yeah.
And he's like, get fucked.
Yeah. And, I think it's interesting that, Junior had asked her to apologize to Jake, and she's like, no fucking way. But Caroline wants this Chucky doll, and she musters up an apology. It shows that she does give a shit about her sister, and she really does not give much of a shit at all about Junior, which we've already kind of figured out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. But there is a heart beating in that chest of hers, and she does love her sister.
She does. And still more great lines from her, even though you're some weird social tumor and creepy AF.
Yeah. She gets a lot of great stuff to say, and she delivers it with aplomb. She's great.
People underestimate my humility.
Yeah.
So
great.
Now that I've done this act of charity.
Yeah. That's great.
Crazy entitled, entitled through the roof.
Yes. So now we're cutting to Jake is now doing some sculpture damage, reminiscent of his father having destroyed his sculpture, stabbing it. What's coming out of it, Alex? What's coming out of it when he stabs it? It looks like orange Tic Tacs. What is all that?
They're like red beads that I signify blood, clearly, but yeah, he loaded it up with beads. He knew he'd be stabbing it at some point, and wanted to see the blood spill.
And it does.
It does. Beads are easier to clean up than actual blood or fake blood. So
yeah,
it did.
And Chucky says you choked, and not in the good way.
Yeah. Yeah, and he mentions completion anxiety,
Yeah.
which Nika has used against him in arguments in the
Yeah.
past. But yeah, he mentions that. He calls him a pussy.
Which I love.
Yeah. Let me fix your Lexi problem, he says.
Yeah.
And I think Jake, because he is very hesitant about actually doing this, he sees that as maybe a solution that would be a little easier. Why get myself, why put myself out there to possibly go to jail for the rest of my life?
He can't do it. He just doesn't have it in it. He's so far we've not seen that he has any ability in him to do this sort of thing.
No, definitely not.
I don't think it's about repercussions he's worried. It's just that he doesn't think he can actually do it.
I agree, but that is just a factor.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be an easy thing to do. Just give Chucky what he wants, give Lexi what she wants, and get your revenge.
And he gives Chucky the giant knife.
Yeah, he does. Similarly to how Chucky handed him the knife at the end of episode 2. Now Jake
pass the baton back again.
Yeah. So now this cuts to Devin in his room, and this is an interesting moment for the character because, as we've been saying, he seems very, very sweet, very, very genuine. But we learn here that he's been secretly recording Jake.
Mm-hmm.
Now, ultimately, we come to understand why that is. I think it's to clear his name, to show people that, he's not a killer. He's not responsible for what's happening. I think, obviously Devin is very in tune to true crime. He's obsessed with it, so to speak. His mother's a detective.
He's got a podcast.
So yeah, I mean, it could be as simple as he's just looking for content for his podcast, but I think it's more he thinks it will help Jake. But we don't know that as the audience at this point.
Right.
Maybe he has an ulterior motive.
And his mom is doing the laundry, walks by the door and hears him talking, hears this Jake's voice saying something with that bitch Lexi. And she just opens the door to see what the hell's going on in there.
Yeah.
Which is a dangerous thing to do, to open a teenage boy's door without knocking first. It says, thanks for knocking, by the way.
Yeah, and that poster game is on point, like you said. I mean, he's got a really cool room. His I have some podcast equipment around my table right now. He's got a lot better equipment than I do. He's got the full setup there for his podcast.
I would take his bedroom. I would take some of Jake's lamps and put them in that bedroom, and it'd be perfect. I could live there.
So now back at the Cross residence, Jake is at the front door with Chucky.
Wait, no. So mom says, stay away from Jake. Stay away from him. And he's like, you gonna pick my friends for me now? Said, no, just no, you're not. No with that kid, no. And he's like, okay, me. So then we leave.
Yeah. I mean, I think we all know that, at that age, if your parents tell you not to do something, you're clearly going to do it more anyway. But yeah, she doesn't trust Jake. Whether it doesn't necessarily mean she thinks that he's responsible for killing either his father or anyone, or even capable of being a killer. But
shit goes down when he's around.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see how caring she actually is, because he depicted her in the first episode as being a satellite mom, sort of not distant and detached from him. And she absolutely is not. She is incredibly concerned for him. I see a very warm relationship between these two.
And so this goes from here to back to the Cross residence, where Jake is at the front door with Chucky in hand, his most useful kill tool, Chucky himself. And you could see he's hesitant, especially when, handing it over to Caroline. I'm sure they've had some conversation like, look, you're just going to kill Lexi, right? You know?
Yeah.
But he does it. He does it. And Lexi looks a little surprised that Jake is doing this. She doesn't seem to question it, but she's a little surprised. And Caroline is over the moon. It's exactly what she wanted.
She's feeding him little sandwiches. The parents are looking on with awe. They can't believe she's being emotional with this doll. She's hugging him. And autistic children often have an aversion to being touched. It really freaks them out. They get maybe sensory overload or something. And they're just like in awe that she's so happy with this doll. And then she offers to let it hug her mom.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the parents are definitely in awe. Lexi is her normal self. She's like, what's the little genius up to now?
Yeah.
You know, still giving her shit. But
But she did a good deal because she got to listen to that doll, and then and it worked. She's really, really happy, and she's having sort of a breakthrough emotionally.
yeah. And I think this is the first direct usage of Child's Play 2 music. That Chucky thing is playing. It's a little, there's a filter applied to it. It's a different version of it. It's kind of all high end, but yeah, it's definitely there, and it's conjures up everyone's memories of Child's Play 2, which you know, we've already pointed out a whole bunch of references to that, and there's a bunch more to come. So yeah. And Chucky whispers to, speaking of homages, Chucky whispers to Caroline something. And it reminded me of that scene in the first film where Chucky whispers to me and I say, Aunt Maggie, Chucky wants to watch the 9 o'clock news. And it leads to Chucky wanting to watch the news.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
watching the news.
It leads to a hug, first of all, too. He hugs Lexi. Would you think that's gonna go wrong? And then Caroline joins in for a threesome hug. It's so cute. Everybody's happy, happy, joy, joy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cut to the news, as you said.
Chucky's sitting there watching the news.
Hackensack, one of the 10 safest communities.
Yeah. Yep. Which is not accurate. But in this show it is.
Not even in this show.
Yeah, no, in the show it's not anymore. That's for sure. That's probably bullshit. It's probably a narrative the mayor put forth that's not even accurate.
Exactly.
Yeah. And this gives us this really unique shot of Chucky. You know, we talk about the mechanics and the difference between the puppet work and when there's a person in costume. This is a really specific mechanical look as Chucky's walking down this hallway. This is the beginning of, like I said, like just a shift in tone in this episode. We're seeing Chucky in a new light. And that's what I felt when I saw that, because the way he's walking there is a little different than any other time that we've ever seen.
Yeah, it's a couple of movements in this episode that are different, that are unique to this episode, I think, almost specifically. Yeah. It's almost like he's on a skateboard. He's got this weird sort of drifting movement. Interesting choice. I'm not sure why they chose it. It's spooky. Yeah. Spooky.
And he said earlier to Jake in this episode, you know, sometimes the moment isn't right, but the right moment always comes. Well, this is the example of the former. He's stalking Lexi and the moment isn't right. The door opens and there's Oliver and Junior and a bunch of other kids ready for an open house party. Parents are away.
Yeah. And Junior's like, well, why didn't you tell me to bring something? They're raiding the liquor cabinet. And Junior's like, why didn't you tell me to bring something? She's like, well, your parents would kill you if they caught you stealing liquor. And you know, Oliver's parents don't give a shit.
Yeah, there's clearly a little power struggle for Lexi's attention between the two of them. Junior, it's not lost on him what he learned from Chucky at the talent show. And Lexi is using it to her advantage. She's playing one against the other.
She is. So Caroline shows up. The dog, Chucky has gone back to inanimate, sitting in the middle of the foyer, and then Caroline comes and grabs him and goes upstairs with him. And now we're at the high school, at the middle school again.
Yeah, I'm meeting with the parents. This is the meeting that Miss Fairchild was trying to set up, and here they are. And you know, both sides are being defending of their child involved, especially the mayor and her husband.
But then she shows the video.
Shows the video. Yeah.
Which is pretty stunning.
It's the first time all four of them are seeing this, you know.
And her parents don't know what they're seeing. The mayor and her husband don't really know what they're seeing until
Logan points it out. He says, "That's my brother."
Why would you let her dress like that? Why would you let her do that?
Yeah. And, you know, they didn't. They were oblivious. They didn't know her costume.
Yeah.
But yeah, but his point is that why would you let her do this? And, you know, we learn, especially when alcohol enters Logan's life, we certainly see the problems that are shared between him and Lucas, and the similarities become evident later. But at this point, I think Logan shows pretty unbelievable restraint.
I think so too. I'd be swinging fists at that point in time. I mean, Devin does a great job in the scene. You really feel the gravity of what he's taking in. But
he
yeah,
didn't blow up because of it. You know,
right.
He kind of, you know, he's shocked a bit, you know, and certainly disgusted.
Right. So now we're in the graveyard with Jake. He's going to visit his parents' grave.
Yeah, and he's doing this because he feels guilt already. You know, he just basically poisoned the drink of another human. You know, the poison is already in the cup. He handed over Chucky, and you know,
and he knows his dad is in that grave because of Chucky.
Yeah.
So he's very aware of the potential outcome of what he's just done. It's a really awesome, like, gothic, spooky fucking graveyard too. It's complete with the, you know, dry ice smoke and everything. It's really great. It's like a little thriller video or something. It's really awesome.
Exactly that. I'd also say that, you know, yes, Chucky killed his father, but I think Jake feels responsible. There was that scene in the first episode where he almost goes downstairs to try to stop it, but he doesn't, and he just plops on the bed. Yeah, he feels responsible for his father's death.
No, he does.
Yeah.
Yes, and now he's doubling down on that by letting Chucky, by delivering him to kill somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's sitting there, questioning what he just did, questioning himself, full of remorse, probably unsure exactly how it's going to play out. This also, to me, kind of reinforces the point that in his guilt in that moment, you know, we talked about nature versus nurture and how it applies to Chucky. I think it shows us that it applies to Jake as well, because despite the trauma that he's been through, despite the bullying, despite the anger, and despite his actions just now, he feels guilt because his nature is not to be a killer. So nature wins again.
Right.
Yeah.
Which leads to one of my favorite scenes of the entire series.
Yeah, I love it too.
It's the party's about to get going on downstairs, and these kids are going to be doing crazy kid things. And Junior and Lexi are putting Caroline to bed. And she says, "Daddy always sings me a song. You're not doing it right. You got to sing me a song." And Lexi does, and she sings. I mean, it's such a leap for a child of that age to even know that song. It's such a great song. I love her delivery of the song.
Too. It gave me chills. It gave me literal goosebumps when I watched it the first time. There's a lot of things in this episode did. Like I said, this episode is really where I realized that this show is beyond brilliant, magnificent, beautiful. all the things that Don set out to make it. I realized it was going to be in this episode. But yeah, there's even a funny thing before she starts singing. Caroline suggests that, and Lexi's about to do it, and Teo makes a great face, like, I gotta see this.
Yeah.
I gotta see this. She's like, don't tell anyone.
Don't fear the Reaper. I don't know. It's sung so sweetly and like a lullaby. It's really powerful. It's really powerful, and the song choice is everything.
I agree.
I really love the scene.
Yeah, I agree. I love her voice in it. I love the way she sings the song. It's really there, and there's also these really ominous tones underneath it too. There's like this, instead of playing like the music of that behind, which maybe some shows would have done, it has these real ominous tones underneath.
And she's singing "Don't Fear the Reaper" while the Reaper is sitting next to her sister. The Reaper is literally on the bed with her.
Yeah, and it brings it back to the garage earlier with Jake with the sickle. Certainly reminiscent of the Reaper.
Yeah.
Don't fear the Reaper. And yeah, tucks Chucky in real good, snug as a bug.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that reminds me of younger Andy being in bed with Chucky. Chucky is tightly wrapped up there.
Yeah.
Much like George Costanza, he prefers it to be untucked.
Yeah.
But it's tucked tight. And he has a great line here, an unbelievable line. It was in the commercial, in the trailer. Hey kid, I'm gonna go kill your sister. You wanna come? I'm sleepy. So yeah, I mean,
you lose.
And Chucky, snug as a bug, cuts himself out, uses his knife, cuts himself out. A very cool scene. The mechanics of the doll look really, really believable for one thing, but also just really great, real smooth, look really good.
Yeah.
So we are still under a full moon, right? Halloween was just the other night.
Yeah.
Moon's lingering around. It's as big as ever. And this cuts to one of my favorite scenes it becomes one of my favorite scenes of the episode, but this silent disco, this little rave with headphones.
It's brilliant. I don't know if this is a real thing. All the kids have Bluetooth headphones on, so they can have a really loud music party that sounds silent.
It's certainly a real thing. It's certainly a real thing. It's, in fact, not just for like teenage house parties, but there are like events where they do that.
Yeah, it's cool, and it's a clever way to get around there being any noise emanating from the house.
Yeah. And the music's great too. It's I love electronic music to begin with. This is a song called Lifetime by Planning to Rock, Let It Happen remix. Yeah, really great music. And they're all good dancers too. Especially Bjorgvin. He's just got so much swag, but they all are. Lexi looks good dancing, and Oliver does. Junior is, a little too cool to be dancing.
No, he's dancing. And I was terrified of dancing. I'm still terrified of dancing.
I was not a dancer either.
So she has a favorite song. She abandons Oliver, goes to Junior, dancing with Junior. Oliver's now, he's the, third wheel, feeling bad. Everyone's fighting over this little girl. And she's in the kitchen by herself. What happens now? We know Chucky's stalking her.
Yeah, well, we see a POV coming towards her. So we certainly assume it's Chucky, but it reveals that it's Caroline. And I'll tell you, the way Caroline's standing there looking at her eyes are like almost the exact same shade of Chucky's. It seemed to me like it looked, she looked like Chucky a little bit in that moment.
She's a gorgeous kid, and she says Chucky said he's going to kill you, and Lexi's like, why would you say that? Why would you say that thing?
I love her delivery too. he says he's gonna kill you. It's just like
Yeah.
so matter of fact, deadpan face,
Yeah.
expression, not a little shift in anything on her face at all. They're really great, really great.
So she's now taking her back to bed, in her little unicorn pajamas, and the party
And
goes on.
the party goes on, and now this leads into my favorite scene of the episode, which is these cuts between the flashback and now, the juxtaposition of then and now, and the similarities within. um Beautiful, beautiful stuff. It goes back to Charles Lee Ray's house. The news, the radio is on. Remain in your homes. The killer's on the loose. Shit's going down. And he's,
And Charles Lee Ray hears some noises in the house. He's a little boy, gets out of bed hearing noises. We don't know what it is hearing yet, though.
yeah, he's like, Mom, Dad. And it just cuts back and forth. And this is really the tone shift that I was talking about in this episode. I mean, it exists throughout the episode, but this moment especially, the use of the music is outstanding, very compelling, great electronic music. It goes kind of from one track to the next. There's the main track of it is called Trifecta, We Came to Party, by DJ Slink. But it's got a really great beat to it, a lot of suspense, a lot of crescendos, and building up intensity for an ultimate release. But yeah, I don't know if they made this track. I don't know if like there was some scoring added in there too. It goes back and forth. Definitely good sound editing, or scoring editing for
Yeah.
sure.
So we're going back and forth of little Charles Lee Ray walking through his house, and then Lexi walking through her house trying to find Chucky. And Oliver comes walking out of a door and is charged by the Reaper.
Yeah. And it's a cool shot too. It's like the camera bumps into Oliver and pulls back,
Yeah.
And Chucky, Oliver goes down, sees a living doll coming after him, and great deliveries from Brad as always. But he's like, "Oh, I thought you were Lexi. Oh well," or whatever he says.
Yeah.
Fuck it. And he starts stabbing Oliver.
The shit out of Oliver, who, by the way, looks a lot like the kid that plays young Charles Lee Ray.
Yeah.
Oliver, they're very similar in their looks.
Yeah.
So now Charles Lee Ray is seeing the serial killer stabbing his father to death in the hallway.
He is. Yep. It's going back and forth between the two stabs. And yes, Chucky looks a little different in his stabbing motion in this scene.
Yeah.
A little off, I guess it could say, but it fits the tone shift on it. Somehow it fits perfectly to me. It definitely, I remember it was a little jarring seeing it. I was like, wow, that looks kind of strange. But
It wasn't stabbing with any real depth either, like it was like sort of superficial cuts, which you could argue.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of them. You could, sort of write like BTK, just bind, torture, kill. You can maybe is the many cutting, death by 1,000 cuts,
Yeah. And I gotta say, as being the original kid in these films that Chucky was trying to kill, and that the audience feared dying, now we're 7 films and 3 episodes in, and finally we kill a kid on screen.
We do, and this is an interesting, the juxtaposition between the Charles Lee Ray watching his father be stabbed to death to Charles Lee Ray stabbing a child to death.
Absolutely.
So Charles Lee Ray is watching dad be stabbed, then adult Charles Lee Ray is killing a child. That's also like a yin yang thing, because Chucky is Charles Lee Ray.
Yeah.
And but I think it's nice because the cliche of these intercut things are to show wild violence, like on The Sopranos, and then cut to somebody at the opera or something beautiful like a wedding or a baptism or something that's beautiful and peaceful, intercut with something super violent. I like cutting from super violence to super violence. That's not how that's usually used. And I like it a lot.
And the music is tying it together just so perfectly. You know, I mentioned that crescendo. It's like literally everybody in the dance party, everybody at the rave, everybody at the EDM party, whatever you want to call it, is waiting for that beat to drop. And
Right.
it drops hard on a Charles run. It was just really, I loved it. I loved it. More goosebumps for me watching this the first time for sure.
No, it's really great. It's really great.
And then after that crescendo bass drop, the music stops entirely. Also very effective. And now here's the killer walking down the hall, knife in hand, held outward, holding the knife, kind of like Chucky holds a knife.
Yeah.
Very much like Chucky holds a knife, actually, or at least that's what it made me feel.
Yeah.
And now that cuts back to present, and Lexi sees that Caroline's passed out. Her job as babysitter is over, and now it's time to light up her joint, which is a nice little joint too, by the way. It's definitely like a full gram joint pre-roll.
Yeah. And there's a really cool shot of her running up the stairs toward a closed door. After she lights the joint and then she runs up. It's sort of a slow-mo jog. And then she fades away and the door is closed. I'm not sure what that's definitely an intentional moment. It must be an homage to something else because it's certainly intentional. And I can't figure out why it's there.
Yeah, it's specific though. So yeah.
It must be an homage to some other thing. I don't know what.
Yeah.
Um,
So this is the first time, look, all the kids seem to have very cool rooms. This is the first time we see Lexi's room.
Which is like some bordello. It's like all red.
Awesome. It's awesome. She's sitting on this like modern day beanbag, not the beanbags that I'm used to that I have at my studio, where ultimately you're just basically sitting on the floor with a bunch of beads around you.
Right.
You know, they don't really support you, but this is a very supportive looking modern beanbag.
Yeah, it's almost like one of those balls you sit on at the office, those balls to keep your posture right. Like it's a very supportive ball.
Yeah, it is. And she's sitting there smoking her joint.
Serenely too. It really, my relationship with weed is not friendly. Weed traumatizes me. To have a 13-year-old girl just taking massive hits off of a giant fat like cigar shaped joint and not having a meltdown is so upsetting to me.
Yeah, well, it affects everybody differently.
It does indeed. I'm a pro weed person. I'm glad it's legal, and a lot of my favorite people are potheads, but I just don't get along with it.
Yeah.
She does. She's having a great time.
Yeah. But she kind of peers through the smoke of her joint at something that she sees that catches her attention. And it's Chucky's shoes behind. And then, this doll creeps her the fuck out. We already know that. And she sees these shoes and she gets up and starts walking towards it. And this is the first time, a lot of firsts in this episode. First time we see Chucky's socks in the history of the show.
Wow. Oh, right. Yeah.
He's walking barefoot in socks.
She goes over and looks and opens the curtains and sees it's just the shoes. Yeah. So she picks the shoe up. She's looking at it like she's curious about what the fuck is this little shoe. Well, she takes a hit of a joint and not there. Stocking feet show up. Yep.
Yeah. And Chucky leaps and is right on her back. And this is another throwback to Child's Play 1. I think it's the first time we've done it since, with the flailing Chucky legs.
Okay. It's also literally Kyle, when she finds Joanne. I did this exact thing with the kicking Chucky and throwing myself against walls and tables and beds to try to get him off.
Yeah. And that's what they used it in part 2 also. But I don't think since then. It's this specific doll that flails and kicks its legs. I mean, from a puppeteering standpoint, it's a specific doll that just does that. It just kicks its legs like crazy. They used to call it flailing Chucky.
Yeah. This is absolutely like a little girl in a bedroom with Chucky on her neck. It's very, very literally the Kyle reference. Definitely. And actually, she tosses him off of her shoulders and he hits the floor on his back, like he gets the wind knocked out of him. And his little legs are doing a little. It's just so funny.
Yeah, and she drops her joint
Yeah.
right next to her curtain. And another thing that I love about this is right before it bursts into flames, Chucky is giving one of his very classic screaming as he's attacking someone. I'm sure Brad loved doing that. It's a lot of like really aggressive screaming. It's the noises he was making when he was attacking in the first couple films. You know, it's very very reminiscent of those scenes.
Mhm.
He gets a lot of like he's very intense when he's trying to kill somebody. And
Mhm.
then the room catches on fire and his intensity turns to laughter too, maniacal, uncontrollable laughter. He thinks it's pretty amusing that he's about to kill this girl and maybe the whole house is going to go because that wasn't his goal. He wasn't trying to set the house on fire. That was Lexi's fault. And Chucky
Right.
finds that very funny.
Yes.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, so the house is exploding in fireballs, and the party's still going on downstairs. These kids, their eyes closed, dancing to this house music, or whatever music it is, oblivious to everything, which is a really, and it's sort of slow-mo dancing, and it looks really sort of so peaceful, and
Yeah.
other violence is going on 20 feet away.
And speaking of slow-mo, there's a brilliant shot where Lexi looks over her shoulder and sees Chucky alive for the first time. And the frame rate or whatever is absolutely slowed down for a second there. I wouldn't say it's full slow motion, it's a half step towards slow motion, I guess, but it slows down and she looks and realizes and then just lets out a blood curdling scream, throws him off of herself and backs herself into a corner. And Chucky's standing there with flames behind him in the most beautiful looking shot maybe of this doll ever with these flames behind him. He looks like regal almost
Like Satan himself in this,
like Satan himself. Yeah.
in Fire Garden.
Yeah. And he says, "This is for Jake, you fucking beep." And I remember a lot of people were curious about that beat because we say, you know, previously on fucking Chucky, there's a lot of fucks going around. So I don't know. The way I see it is Chucky's had so many great one-liners over the years. This is an opportunity for you to fill in your own blank. Uh, I filled it in with cunt personally, but it's up to everyone what they want to think. He
It
said,
looks like cunt to me. As you know, I'm a huge fan of that word, and I use it liberally.
yeah.
So that's where my brain went to.
Yeah, and I think that maybe is the overall consensus, and that would maybe justify a bleep. You know, we get a limited amount of fucks and probably no cunts
Yeah, I don't think you call 13-year-old girls cunts on no.
on basic cable television. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think so either. Um,
Leave it to our twisted adult imaginations.
yeah, but leave it up to your. It could have called her whatever you want him to have said in that moment.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, this is for Jake, and then this goes back to the flashback. The mother is in the closet with her son
Right.
Charles after her husband, his father, was stabbed to death in the living room, and she's terrified and she's crying. And then this makes a direct cut to the cemetery where Jake hears sirens going off and he absolutely collapses.
He thinks this means Lexi is dead.
Yeah, he thinks he's now killed somebody.
Mhm.
He starts profusely apologizing to his parents, to God, perhaps, to
Yeah.
himself, to Lexi, or whatever. He just cannot stop saying, "I'm sorry."
So sorry. I'm so sorry. Aw.
Yeah, and we realize in that moment, as does Jake, that he's not a killer. He's never going to be a killer. It's just not. It's not in his nature.
They pan to a Charles Lee Ray tombstone. Died November
9th, 1988, which is the date that the first film was released.
Okay.
We use that date a lot whenever we can. 11/9/88.
It's a good number.
It's a good number, and I think I could let this out of the bag because they didn't actually spend enough time showing it in the movie, but in Cult of Chucky, that was the combination to my safe.
Oh, that's cool.
11/9.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
And so the killer opens the closet with the mother and young Charles Lee Ray in it. And we find that young Charles Lee Ray has slaughtered his mother.
Yeah.
The killer opens the doors to find that young Charles Lee Ray has killed his mother and looks up at the killer and says, I helped.
Yeah. Yeah. Really great delivery from this kid too. I helped.
It's great because I couldn't tell if it was a statement or a question. He hit the exact middle point there where I couldn't tell if he was asking or saying it, you know?
Yeah. He's enamored by this murderer,
Mm-hmm.
by this killer. He really is. He looks at him in a very mentor, fatherly way.
He does.
And the killer kind of gives him a similar look, a look of approval.
Mm-hmm. You got guts, kid. You got guts. But if you're going to do this, do it right and learn to cover your tracks.
Yeah. Wipes the blood off on his shirt, which, you know, I think in 88 there was DNA stuff already. I don't think that was a very thorough job. Not yet. In the 90s.
No, DNA, only blood type. They only had blood type DNA, which just tells you a giant swath of a population that could have done it, but not DNA.
Early 90s then, like, yeah, right before OJ, that DNA became a thing. But anyway, yeah, he wipes the blood off, hands it back to this little boy who literally has blood on his hands.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you got guts, kid.
And then he walks down a rainy street in the middle of the street with a knife in his hand, evidently out, like most murderers wouldn't walk around with the bloody knife in their hand down the middle of a well-lit street.
This was the another goosebumps moment for me because whether it's the way he's walking, the way he's holding the knife, the shadow of him, it looks like Chucky. It reminds me of our cast and crew shirt with the red Chucky. Like there's something about that visual to me that looked like Chucky. It looked like what Charles was going to grow up to become, his mentor.
Really?
If even for a night. Yeah, very much so to me. The way he's holding the knife, there's something about it that to me absolutely conjured an image of Chucky in my mind.
Okay.
That was my perception. So I mean,
no, and that's fair. I think it's such a specific shot. It almost looks like it's black and white. It's a very monochromatic image. I also feel that this must be an homage to something else that I'm not recognizing, because it's so specific and so different from anything else we've seen so far as imagery. He does look squat. He does look like potentially there's some hope that you would make the connection between the man and the dog, that man and Chucky. But yeah, and that's that. Yeah,
that's that for the episode. It resolves to a laughing Chucky in flames. To hit home the point, you know.
Mm-hmm.
This is a beautiful, beautiful episode. One of my favorites of the season. I enjoyed very much watching it again. And yeah, I think if you've only watched it once, you should go back and watch it again. I hope people are kind of like the people that are watching this podcast. I hope they're or listening. I hope they're going back and watching it after we talk about it. You know, one of the things that inspired me to do this, I think I've said it before. I mean, the main inspiration, honestly, was that I was just so moved by the show and it was so brilliant, and I wanted to talk about it, and I wanted to talk about it with you. But it was the Talking Sopranos podcast where they were breaking down these shows like this. I brought them up because that's what I did. I would watch their episode of the podcast and then go watch that episode again.
Yeah.
Which was fun to do.
Yeah. I'm with you. I hope people do that with us too. And see it with a different eye. And like before, if you guys saw things that we didn't see, if you caught an homage, or if you know the two that I think definitely were, but I don't know what they were homages to. If you know, please comment and let us know, or track us down on Instagram or something and let us know.
Do all the things. Like it, notify, put notifications for yourself. Smash that like button, guys. Yeah, all that stuff. Do all that, and also follow us on Instagram if you haven't, and check out our Patreon pages because we're doing fun stuff over there.
Yeah, I did a whole half-hour clubhouse meeting with my Patreon crew yesterday. It was fun. People
Yeah.
from all over the world.
Yeah, I've been posting some thoughts of the days and some poetry and some all kinds of other content on there. There's going to be music coming up. There's bonus stuff from this show. There's early access. There's sit downs. I do like sit downs with people, Zoom sit downs, one-on-ones. There's all kinds of cool stuff. Just
Right.
go to our Patreon and check it out.
And Alex and I offer different things too, so it's not like doubling down on the same content is, except for the overlap of this podcast, everything else is different.
Yeah. I mean, we may be, brother and sister, but we're different people.
Indeed.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Next week will be episode 4. First, there'll be an interview and then our breakdown on the following week. And our interview next week is with mother and daughter, Barbara Allen Woods and Olivia Allen Lind. Really, really, really fun to talk to them. And yeah, it was a fun time. I was away in Salt Lake City for it. But we did it from the hotel. But yeah, it was a really fun interview, and we're excited to bring that to you. And we're excited to see you guys at New Jersey Horror Con in Atlantic City this weekend. We will be there. And thank you for joining us. We'll be back next week.
See you next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday. Thanks, guys.